A short and cutesy casual ghost simulator with simple gameplay and entertaining animations. Haunt the House Terrortown is an old Newgrounds game which has been rebuilt to run at 1080p and 60 frames per second, as well as throwing in a whole bunch of new content to make it worth your while. It's a side-scrolling action game in which you need to frighten the residents of various rooms until they eventually run away. There's no story to speak of, just that you are a ghost who wants to rest in the clock tower, but the ungrateful residents of the town never sleep, and there's only one thing for it: he's got to spook the hell out of them until they finally leave. Since its Steam release, there have been several additions to the game, making a level selector necessary. Unfortunately, this has made it somewhat confusing. I checked the controls to see what I needed to do and got the absolute basics, but it had a little side note that said a full-length tutorial is also available. But with nothing to guide me, I just picked the first level on the list and went to work. It turns out that the tutorial is specifically linked to a level called Terrortown, which is the second on the list. This confusion resulted in me playing one level with no idea on what I was actually trying to do. It's a simple misunderstanding, but it's basic stuff to put the tutorial at the beginning. Once you've finally found it, it's all very simple. You control the movement with the arrow keys, jump into various objects around the environment, and once inside you can do various spooks, which consist of little animations which disturb the residents. They go through several stages of fright. Initially they'll watch suspiciously and begin to move away from the area, but if you keep following them and continuing to scare them, they'll begin to run. At this point you need to guide them out of the building. There is another stage to this process in the form of a terror bar, which indicates just how scared the residents are as a whole. As this bar increases, you gradually unlock new spooks which have a much greater effect and add more variety to the experience. It also encourages you to make your way around the environment again just to see if there are any new animations to play, as they are probably the best part of the game, and some of them have a very charming sense of humour to them, and others are just very well thought out. You get some which are simply moving cups and spilling drinks or flickering light bulbs, but this gradually progresses up to some which rearrange the books into a face or bounce a ball pit into the form of a monster. It's all harmless stuff really, but good fun nevertheless. It certainly seems like the ideal game for kids to play, as there's nothing too hideous and ultimately they're in control of it. The sound effects and animations would be absolutely perfect, and I can imagine that they will play it much longer because of this. That's not to say there isn't the variety to entertain all ages by any means. There is tons of stuff to possess and scare civilians until they're screaming and running mindlessly about the place, and on one of the levels you even have a selection of ghosts, each with a different theme and sound. I'm not entirely sure why these aren't available on every level though. It somewhat limits what is a nice little feature which could have given you a little more personal choice. In terms of tactics, I found the most effective way was initially just to scare randomly where you see congregations of people to get your terror level up, and then when you get down to the last few dregs of people, start to follow individuals throughout the building until they finally get the hint. This usually means that you're trying to block off the various stairways by sitting at the top and trying to send them back the way they came, but it can get quite challenging and frustrating as once they are at maximum fear they don't think rationally anymore and start to flail about the place. You need to wait for them to calm down to the level below this so they can still remember where the exit is. Of course the other way around is to just scare them right into a window and some will jump straight out. I didn't manage to catch this happening though, so I'm unsure what the end result of this is. Ultimately it's a cute cheap game and it has a nice simple style to it. It's one of the more innocent titles I've played of late, and I think it's a pretty good example of when games are just really charming. You won't get a horrendous amount of mileage out of it. It took me 2 hours to complete the levels it comes with, and I think I've seen the vast majority of the content, although I haven't picked up the achievements for possessing every item and using every spook, so there must be more to see. There are a couple of bugs, such as the number of complaints that the achievements aren't activating when they should, and the game does occasionally freeze. This just means that you need to close it and restart it, and you get back in exactly where you left off, so it's no big shake. Overall, I would say that I liked it, but it's probably one for the younger generation. I liked some of the animations, but they weren't enough to provoke a reaction. You can still play this game totally free on Newgrounds, but personally I think if you're going to play it, it's worth the small cost to experience it without the jerky animations. By all means it's worth trying before you buy though. Personally I'd pick it up in a sale, as it'll only be about £1.